You can holler, you can applaud, you can scream, you can do anything you want. I can't hear you anyway.
Hi everyone, I'm Kyler Bingham and you're listening to the Salt Lake Dirt Podcast. On today's show we have Duncan Birmingham, who is a writer, TV producer, and filmmaker based out of Los Angeles. His book, The Cult in My Garage, comes out August 9th on Maudlin House. Book of short stories, excellent. I totally fell in love with this book, and we're going to talk a lot about the collection in the episode here. Duncan was a writer and a executive producer on both the IFC series Maron, starring Marc Maron, and then Blunt Talk over on Starz, Jonathan Ames' show. So two shows that are highly rewatchable. I love Maron. Blunt Talk was the last thing of Jonathan Ames' work that I had yet to see or read. And then I just, a couple months ago, bought the series and watched it and fell in love with that as well. So if you like those shows, if you like Maron and you like Blunt Talk, you definitely need to pick up Duncan's book, The Cult in My Garage. You'll love it. I highly recommend you order or pick up a copy at Skylight Books in Los Feliz, California. I will put a link so that'll make it easy for you to do so. Very excited to have Duncan on the show. I really enjoyed our conversation. I look forward to having him back on again. I'm here with Duncan Birmingham. His new book, The Cult in My Garage, is released by Maudlin House on August 8th, I believe.
That's right.
Great. So I had the chance to read the whole thing, and I got to say, as far as like a book of short stories, I don't think I've ever read a book of short stories so fast. It was because usually of a book of short stories, I'll read one, put it aside, go to bed. And, you know, part of the reason obviously was I knew I was going to speak with you, but I read over half of the book in one night. I stayed up way too long, and I was just absolutely loving these short stories. I mean, they're awesome. I was very jealous. I'm like, man, what a great idea. How did I not come up with that? Such funny and endearing and just like incredible stuff. So I'm kind of curious because you have a background in television. Another reason why I wanted to speak with you, one of my favorite shows is the IFC show Maron.
Oh, great. That you and Brad Pitt.
Yeah, I heard that episode. Yeah, I like to see Mark's misery, right? But that was such a great show. And then I'm a huge Jonathan Ames fan, but the only thing of his work that I had not read or seen was Blunt Talk up until about a month ago. So I bought the series.
Oh, that's awesome.
I've been picking my way through Blunt Talk. So you're involved with two of my favorite shows. So really thrilled to speak with you. And then, I mean, your short story is incredible work. So maybe I'm kind of rambling here, but I just want to hear.
No, if it's compliments, just keep rambling. I would love this was the whole podcast. This is great.
Yeah, we need more of that, right? There's so much negativity, so we need to throw some.
Certainly a lot of negativity over where I'm living. Yeah, in my life. Well, that's awesome to hear, and yeah, I can start anywhere. I was just thinking, Starz doesn't make it easy to see Blunt Talk. I'm really glad that you seeked it out. I got a photo over Twitter DMs the other day of a new Twitter friend I have. We've never met. He's a big Blunt Talk fan, and he sent me a picture of he and his wife watching Blunt Talk DVDs while she was waiting to give birth. And then a few hours later, I got a picture with the baby, and they were still watching Blunt Talk. So that made me feel nice.
That's going to be a twisted baby when.
I guess that's
incredible. Show. Well, I think with shows like that you've been involved with, you really, because I got the I even got Starz and I couldn't find it on Starz, so I don't know if I was just doing something wrong. So I'm like, well, this is a show I know if Jonathan Ames was involved with. I know I'm going to be rewatching it, so I just bought it. But you have fans that are unlike other kinds of fans who are just like, they know every line, or they're just very, very into the work. So that's got to be really cool to have. You know, we watch so much, and I hate the word content. I think we all probably probably do, but when you create something that is memorable and people want to come back to, that's got to be a huge compliment.
A huge compliment. And, you know, I mean, Blunt Talk's really Jonathan Ames' baby. And I was a fan of his and a fan of his books. So I was really excited to work on that show. And I was excited to work with I mean, he's a novelist and nonfiction, but I think at least one thing that stands out when I do get those DMs from people or emails from people that love the show, I think it's because there's just so much on there that wouldn't be on another show, whether it's Patrick Stewart, you know, reciting poetry, or a John Cheever reference. I think I've gotten a few DMs and emails from people that are in academia that really love the show. And then I think also a very Jonathan Ames trademark is just the warmth between the characters. I think is something that, especially just now in the kind of the current phase of TV, there's so many anti-heroes, and I love anti-heroes and so many plot lines that might have to do with people kind of tearing at each other's throats, that there's kind of a warmth in the Blunt Talk crew when they're spooning and when they've got each other's backs that I think people find refreshing in a kind of an edgy cable comedy. You might expect the reverse.
For sure. Yeah. So that's how I heard about the book. Jonathan tweeted something about it, and anything he tends to recommend, I usually try to get my hands, on a copy of it. And because I always love it. It's always, he's turning me on to writers that I completely fall in love with. So, and yeah, with this book, The Cult in My Garage, it was just, I loved it more than I thought I would. It was just the stories. And I mean, I have the titles of some of these, and that was what's so great. They all have, it's tough coming up with a title for something, and these all like sparked my interest as I was about to read the short story. I'm like, obviously the title story, The Cult in My Garage, that was a very interesting title. And then I don't want to spoil anything, but man, what a story. I mean, I'm kind of curious, with these short stories, were some based on TV projects that you had been working on, and you translated them into a narrative prose, or is this something separate, completely separate from TV work that you had been working on?
It's a mix. I would say mostly separate, but not totally. I've always written stories, since I was probably 18, 19, always sending them out to literary magazines, to mixed success. And I would say a couple years ago, I started to seem like I was hitting a little more, getting the stories into literary magazines and posting them on Twitter afterward. And so, a few people had read them. Actually, when I was working with Jonathan Ames, he read a couple, and so he's been super encouraging through the whole process. Yeah, and maybe a year and a half ago, maybe kind of a little before the pandemic was starting, I felt like I had enough stories. I'd sent out a collection years ago in my late 20s. It hadn't gone anywhere. And I was like, geez, I feel like I have enough stories where I could kind of pull them together into something, enough stories where I could put them together and kind of take out the ones that I thought were that didn't work, and I felt like I kind of concentrated on stories that felt like the most contemporary. Not that any of the stories were, period pieces of people, sitting in rooms ruminating about things, but ones that felt like they could only be only exist kind of in this current world. Most of them existed purely as stories, as everyone knows, as the cliches about screenwriting and TV writing go, it's really a stop and start, frustrating business. So to be able to kind of stop and write a story on my own and have it exist in the world is like a thing that I do that I find super satisfying. So there are a couple in there, like Exterminator, which was a story I wrote, and then I wrote it I shot it as a short film about 2 years ago. And then I did write a a script for that. It's like a horror comedy that I've been shopping around. But yeah, most of them exist kind of on their own. They fell into probably 2 out there for a TV show or a movie bucket, but felt like there was an arc there that lent itself to a short story.
Very cool. And I was just thinking about, I think it's the non-essential workers, that short story. So that, I mean, that you're addressing the pandemic, and that one's so clearly written fairly recently. I am curious. I've talked to a lot of writers and different people about their process, because everything halted in a way. With novel writers, it was kind of, the ones I've talked to at least, it was kind of split. Like some were like, well, my life didn't really change a whole lot because I was kind of like holed up in my office writing. So they actually found they were more productive in certain respects. And then other writers kind of hit a brick wall and really struggled to come up with anything, creative. So I'm just kind of curious, this, last year and a half or whatever, what has been your experience with it? Clearly you wrote at least one of the short stories in that period, but I'm curious about, like, collectively, kind of your career and your writing. How was it impacted, or if it was at all?
It was okay. I wasn't, I spent enough time in my room, so it wasn't like I was one of those people who was like, couldn't wait to bunker down and get some writing done. I certainly had the pandemic was, not something I want to repeat, although I guess it feels like we are repeating now.
Seriously.
Usually my years kind of split up. It's kind of like half writing alone, and then half, if I'm lucky enough to be half writing in a TV writer's room. So it wasn't, I was lucky in that it wasn't a total, rip me away from my usual, off the moorings of my usual life, because I am writing at home a lot, but I didn't get that other half of the year around other people in. So it was a little more solo time, working on things. And I usually kind of have a list of projects that I'm working on for when I have downtime. So I would say it just from a purely creativity or productivity standpoint, I'd give it a 6. I'd give it. I did get a lot done right before the start of the pandemic. I got a new job, so that was great. So that took me through a couple months of assignments to do. That was a TV show that will almost positively never happen, but at least that I had my mind on something else. And then at the same time I was working on these stories, and that kind of became my pandemic project, while other people were baking bread or learning languages, or dealing with their issues.
Yeah. Well, this will last longer than bread, so that's
well, who
that's
knows? Who knows? I would like to pick up some new skills. I don't pick up skills easily, so I know, like,
same here. I am curious about your like where you grew up. Obviously you live in Los Angeles now, as a working writer, but where were you raised?
When I was a kid, and I know you spent some time in Boston, because I was listening to the Nick Flynn episode the other day. But I started in Boston, right in the city, as a kid, and then my dad came home one day and was like, "What would you guys think about moving to Florida?" And my mom was like, "Over my dead body." And then we moved to Florida the next year. So then kind of middle school and high school was South Florida. And then back up to New England, upstate New York for college, and then settled back in Boston after college, and really felt like that was home, but did have the urge to try and write for TV and movies, and came out here a couple years after that, thinking that almost in this Ben Affleck, Matt Damon way, I was going to like start my empire in Boston, LA, and then move back to Boston, the greatest city in the world, which I still love. But after a year in LA, I was like, oh, it's pretty good out here.
It's not bad.
Actually, the first year was terrible. The first year, I would say, by the second year, I was like, oh, it's pretty good out here.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice. I used to live in Long Beach.
Okay.
So like a different world for sure, but it does kind of like, it takes some adjusting I mean, I guess like with anywhere you move, it's when you any city from my experience that's on either coast, and I guess the whole country for that matter, it's like um at least I did. I hated it at first, and then it kind of like you start adapting to it. But because I'm from Salt Lake City, and it's like it's a very easy place to grow up, and it's from my point of view. You know, it's quick to get anywhere. You can kind of just like spur of the moment, go somewhere. You're in the mountains in 20 minutes. You're wherever. But I think just like my patience was tested in a good way, so it was good to have those experiences. And I mean, I would love to live. I would live back in Los Angeles if I had the choice between Boston, Salt Lake, or LA. But yeah,
LA is tough because I feel like, and it sounds like maybe you were the same. You as a kid, at least, I'm poisoned. I always thought I grew up to think of San Francisco as this great city, but LA was, you know, this place for Hollywood pariahs and just the cement jungle. So when you pack up your car and tell people you're moving there, they just shake their heads like you're, you know, garbage. And then when you get out here and you do like it, then at least I was like starting to question myself. I was like, hold it, am I a bad person? I kind of like that. But it is a tough city in the beginning because it is the city with no, as they say, no center. So you're living in kind of or at least I was living in kind of the grungier part of Hollywood, and I'm like, is this the center of town? This doesn't seem that great.
No, it's so true. I mean, because you have in Boston, I lived in the North End.
Oh,
so that's clearly like a, you know, it's a definitive space, and you get out of the North End, you recognize that, and it's like you have I don't know, a sense of balance. I don't know if that makes sense, but in LA or Orange County, there's so many little I think more so than anywhere I've ever been, there's so many worlds within that spot. And I still go down there a couple times a year and try to explore a new area. And I'm like, this is insane. Like, you know, like I was in Beechwood Canyon last time I was down there. I'd never been up there before. And it was such a cool little, you know, experience just walking through. And then, you know, it's just incredible. Then, yeah, I was staying in East Hollywood this last time. So I just ended up walking all the way back to my hotel. And you have all these different worlds and communities kind of living cut off from each other in a way. So it's an interesting place for sure.
Yeah. Oh, it sounds like you're very close to me. Yeah. It's like any city. Yeah. You find your neighborhood, and then then you can kind of, not dismiss the rest of the city, but then at least you feel like you might have a little more of a home base, and that feels a little more homey.
Yeah, if you can like help not having a massive commute every day and I mean, it's exhausting running around down there. So if you can just find one little area where you have like your grocery store, you have your stuff, then it's all good for sure. I wanted to talk to you because I go to Sundance every year. So I've read that you had a short film up there at some point. Maybe I'm just curious. And then you said you made another short film a couple of years ago.
Yeah, when I first moved out to LA, you know, I came out here like so many do with my screenplays that I'd written, you know, back in the days when people had actual screenplays with the Brads in them and stuff like that. And worked in screenplays for a while and had some lucky breaks, but definitely got to the point where I felt like I couldn't, I wasn't selling, or I wasn't, nothing was getting made. So even if I sold something, which was great, there was no control after that. You know, they might bring in the director, he might rewrite it. There was just not a lot of payoff. So I got into TV a little before the jump to TV, before kind of the mad rush to TV, to the golden age of TV. And that was great. But I did have this feeling of like, oh, I miss screenplays. I miss that kind of storytelling structure. I kind of missed what I thought was going to be my trajectory, which was like, oh, I'd write so many great screenplays that someone would be like, this guy's a genius. Give him a camera. He probably knows how to direct, which I don't. But I started making shorts. So the first short was just in my bedroom. just a very simple story about a couple having an argument. And I got really spoiled because from this very simple short that we shot in a night, it went to Sundance. And then I was like, wow, I've got the magic touch. I must really have my finger on the pulse. I have not been back to Sundance since, but I've kept making shorts, and I have a indie horror movie I'm trying to put together right now that's a feature. But I really love shorts, and I feel like they are it's a similar itch to scratch as a short story, in that that's the whole enchilada. It's a completed thing that lives on its own. That's obviously not as sizable as a feature, comparable to a novel, but that's fully satisfying, and hopefully speaks for itself as a little piece of art.
Yeah, for sure. I covered a bunch of festivals this past year, the online festivals, and this is my I've been, I would say probably the last 20 years I've been up to Sundance, either just as a fan or covering different things, and it's close to where I live. And I think what was so cool about this year was, so disappointing we couldn't meet in person, but I saw so many short films that I never would have seen before, just because I had, full access to kind of like picking and choosing what I wanted to do. Slamdance did a really cool approach to their festival, where I think it was a 2-week period where you could just download their channel and you could stream, you could pick, and it was $10. So if you were, anyone around the world, for $10, they had 2 weeks full access to the entire catalog. And so I just spent one night just going through tons of short films. And there's so many incredible shorts out there that, it's so sad that people don't get to see them. So I think, like, I'm hoping, I've talked to a lot of people who were just, kind of coming up, and they made their first short. And we talked a lot about that, how, maybe people will start kind of seeking these out more so than before. And it is, because it's like, it seems really difficult, short film, short story. I have so much respect for people who can pull that off, because I certainly can't.
Yeah.
In a short form, it's fucking hard. And when it's done well, you can see that and you respect it. So, I forget what I was talking about. I wanted to know the short film.
Opening up that world of shorts. Yeah, I've had the same experience, because the short that's kind of based on the short story Exterminator, that short film was playing, and it got into all these horror festivals and genre festivals, which I was excited to go to, because I've never even been to one as a fan. But those festivals all became online, and that was still a lot of fun to go to them. And I did see a lot of shorts that I probably wouldn't have watched if I was at the festival running around. But since I had the weekend pass to it and had the time, I was watching tons of them, tons of these really offbeat, quirky horror shorts, and really loved them. And I just love just getting on Vimeo and surfing around. There's so much great stuff on there.
Yeah, definitely. That's the when I was reading Exterminator, I kept picturing Maron as the guy. Like, I was like, this would be I could see him interacting with this Exterminator, and it would be so funny. I'm seeing elements of like just the tone of your writing, how it did crossover when you wrote for the Maron show. I'm kind of curious about how, like, that process, that was 3 seasons, or was it 3?
That was 4 seasons. I was really there for 2 seasons. Then I did a little writing, a little consulting for the last 2 seasons, but I was also on Blunt Talk, so I was really there for the first 2.
Gotcha. Okay.
And that show could have gone on and on. Marc, was anxious to do other things, I think. Maybe do something where he's not having to dissect his life constantly. But it was great. That was a dream gig. Usually when I kind of go into producers' offices like a salesman and pitch my, sweat it out, pitching my wares and my ideas, there's often a pass, but then sometimes they might have something for you. And in my case, it's usually something terrible. It's like a book that's like no one's ever heard of, or it's a book that's really exciting. That I'd love to work on, but they've got like 40 different writers who are pitching on it. And it's kind of probably an assignment that would go nowhere. So in this case, I was pitching something to Dennis Leary's production company, and they passed on the pitch, but they were like, we really want to work with Marc Maron, and we're looking for a writer. And I think maybe they had a couple, and nothing had kind of clicked yet. And they were putting up the money to do a pilot presentation. So it wouldn't just be writing something, but it'd also be getting to shoot something. And I was a big fan, and went over to meet Marc and was a little nervous, and it was just great. It was just great. There's just so much there, the tone is already there. If you listen to the podcast, the characters are already there, and there's this like amazing hook of this guy who lives. I mean, now Highland Park's, at the time was more of an outlier neighborhood of a man that lives in Highland Park and does a podcast and has celebrity guests, some of which he has a history with, some of which he might be, have an axe to grind against, some of which he's jealous against, or jealous of, coming to his house to do a talk show out of his house. I mean, it's just this great story generator. And for me, it was kind of like writing fan fiction. So it was super fun, and it was we did this pilot presentation, and then I think it took a while. I think like a year later, IFC picked it up, and those were almost like shooting a little bit like short films, and a lot of those feel like short stories to me as well. But Marc is such a great character. He's just so fun to write for, because I feel like even though he's about 10 years older, it just felt like we had a lot of the same references, and I've got so much of him in my head from knowing him for so long, and knowing him through the podcast for so long, that it was just a lot of fun. Yeah. And
then we have your work with Jonathan Ames.
He's turned me on to a lot of great noir.
Yeah, Jonathan. Yeah.
Stage of his career.
Well, I wanted to talk about the Foodie Detective, because that was like, I think, is that the longest one in the collection?
Think that's the longest one. Probably that's the longest, and I think non-essential. I think that, or maybe There Are No Hills on the Cape, are probably similar. But
okay.
The Foodie Detective was the only one that I kind of broke up into little chapters, because it almost felt like a little bit of a novella. Yeah, I used to have I love Jonathan Gold, who's the big LA big LA film critic who passed a few years ago, and to me, it just always there always felt like something about a detective to me about him. I met him once, and he did mention, like, he even made a little reference to, he's kind of like a detective. He goes into the restaurant, he's got to like suss out where the ingredients are from, are they fresh, and he's got to like draw all these things and come up with like a conclusion and a working thesis of like, is this restaurant worth people going to? And I thought that was interesting, and just the always thinking about him and the imagery of him driving his white truck around LA, looking for these places, trying to scoop other food writers. And I have the same feeling on a kind of a global scale with Anthony Bourdain. And Anthony Bourdain, draws on a lot of detective imagery in his TV shows, for sure. Like they'll do when they did the Boston episode, they did it like very noir style, like that movie The Friends of Eddie Coyle. And when he's in Jamaica, they'll kind of do a James Bond spoof a little bit. So Bourdain wrote hard-boiled crime fiction. So I just feel like there's this kind of crossover, especially with these Nightcrawler type foodies that really come out at night and are always kind of on the hunt for the next great thing.
Yeah, no, that one, I mean, that was great. Like I could have definitely read more of that character. It was great. And I didn't know Anthony Bourdain wrote hard-boiled fiction. I got to check that out. That's very cool.
Yeah, he's got one of these one book, the Bobby Gold stories. Those are good. And then another one, I think it's called like Rule the Bone or something. Or actually that's Russell Banks, something of the bone. But his stuff's really interesting.
Yeah, I love that genre's, comedy that speaks to me, and then any kind of noir with and a lot of noir is really funny when you when you read it and kind of like jump into the character. I mean, Jonathan, his last book, I don't know if you've had a chance to read A Man Named All.
I did.
Yeah,
oh, yeah.
Great book, funny. I'm looking forward to more from that character. Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, no, I love the way, and I know he might have talked about this on the show. I love the way the next book starts. Got a little teaser of the next chapter.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. So hopefully that comes out, next year. So that'd be awesome. Let's see. I wanted a couple other short stories that really, so Quebec really like grabbed me. I just it's like I know that girl in that story. Yeah, such a the way you make these characters like so realistic. I was just curious. We all writers pull from their life, obviously, some more than others. So I'm just curious about some of the characters because they are pretty unique, and I'm curious about your development of character. Especially in that one particular that kind of grabbed me, the Quebec story.
Yeah, I felt like for that one, I guess I was just really thinking of, I thought about a lot of people I've dated that kind of have big personalities that I've almost gotten, you almost kind of get swept up in the trajectory of their lives. They're like these beautiful shooting stars that you're kind of just holding on to because they are, I don't know if big personality is the right word, but let's stick with that for now. But so in that story, not so much based on a specific person, but I just kind of combined a lot of different traits of different people that I've dated and thought about and think about fondly. And one reason I think about them fondly, I think is and I think the character even has this line in the story, is that sometimes you're dating someone with a bigger, messier, louder, crazier life, and it almost feels relaxing and soothing not to be the crazier, more eccentric person for a while. You're almost certain people almost overpower you with the chaos of their lives, and you're just kind of like along for the ride. And there's something that I have found soothing about that, and it's been proved to be a pattern in my life somehow, where somehow I guess I'm seeking out these people. So that was then I guess if I was thinking of that, it would really seem like it would be an amalgam of a lot of different people. It just kept getting kind of bigger and bigger as I kind of went through my previous dating life, thinking about different stories, and somehow they all kind of worked under the umbrella of one person.
Yeah, no, I love that one. I know what you mean though about like being the less like crazy neurotic one, and you kind of almost wear it with it like a badge of pride. I'm a high school history teacher, and yeah, we were here in Utah. We were in person the entire past year. Students had the option to do, at home. So we kind of had it split. We were kind of doing two jobs ineffectively. But it was just interesting, like seeing coworkers who you could just see it. And I guess this is twisted on my part, but you just see it in their eyes and the way they carry themselves, and like they're not doing good. So just the constant comparing yourself with like, I'm doing a little better than them. I feel pretty good about that. So it just made me think of that for some reason.
Yeah, there's an element of almost you become a different person a little bit, that I felt like I was like, oh, when I think back on these relationships, I was like, God, did I even speak? Like you're just, and I think there might be a little bit of, I also feel like I'm there for a temporary time. I'm going to be kind of pushed to the side at some point too. So I'm trying to do everything I can, because usually I'm enjoying the relationship and trying to make it work. But I do feel like my days are numbered in some of those, where this person's going to be moving on no matter.
It. Yeah.
They're really the shooting star type quality.
That's great. I'm curious. So the title story, The Cult in My Garage, also, incredible. What made you pick that one as the title for the book itself?
Well, that's actually funny. I bothered a lot of people, including Jonathan Ames, about titles. I was like, geez, is it, I do like collections where there's a story that is the title story. I feel like that feels kind of classic, and that's always kind of that's been what a few of my favorite collections have done. So it was like, well, which of these stories, and then I end up changing the titles of the stories to kind of fit the title of the book. Anyway, I always liked The Cult in My Garage. Someone did mention it felt like a Goosebumps novel. So at that point, I did kind of come up with some other thing. For a while I was going to call it Everybody's Famous after that story, but I like many people, I think I'm almost sick of anything having to do with fame. So I didn't, and that's not really what the book is about. I felt like it felt like The Cult in My Garage felt just strange enough. I like the way it sounds on my tongue. Mm-hmm. And it feels like there's something there of a juxtaposition of like the surreal and the mundane that felt like it kind of fit with the book. Not that every story in the book has a surreal element. I think it's about like 70% of them, but it felt like there was something there with this kind of, there's also a little bit of menace in there too, which I think a few of the stories have that I liked.
Yeah. No, that one, the title, like that, once I found out about the book, the title, I'm like, okay, I have to read this. Like, I'm interested just off the title alone. So I think it was like a great choice for the collection. So yeah.
Good. I'll also read anything with or watch anything with cult in the title. So that was my own little one person branding survey.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, cults. I think people still love cults.
Oh, I can never get enough of cults. I'm always reading about cults, and then I'm like, I think, and then just like how anything can be a cult, almost like a business. It's just like it's never ending. So it is just fascinating, the psychology behind it and why people are drawn to it. Just absolutely interesting. I know I can never get enough of it.
I can't get enough cults, and I think part of it is that when I'm watching these docudramas or whatever they are, I'm always thinking like, would I fall for this? Mm-hmm. I think that's part of it. In most cases, I think the answer is yes. Yeah. Like, yeah, I get this. I could definitely fall into this. Yeah.
Well, no, it's so true, because like here in Utah, we have those huge multi-level marketing things, that's just like swallows up like so many people here, and it's very ingrained into the culture. And so it is just funny who you see. Like I've known so many people fall for it completely. And I years ago when I was like really, really depressed and kind of low, I had a coworker that I trusted, and I'd always make fun of these people, and he totally suckered me into buying the initial pack of some like dumb health food thing. And then within just like a month or so, I'm like, oh my God, they got me. They get you when you're weak. So it's incredible. But yeah, I think like anyone is like religious or not, like anyone is susceptible, given the right circumstances that you're going through in life, they can get you, and they can get you good.
Yeah. I mean, they start very simple. It's like, who's not into vitamins? Who doesn't want to do a little yoga? Who doesn't want a little self-improvement? And then, so it starts innocently enough. There's certainly nothing wrong with the first few steps, or, I guess some cults work for some people. So
functioning cults. Yeah. I like it.
Some people thrive.
I read, not to go off too much on cults, but I read, I think it's called Raven a while back, about Jim Jones. Pretty incredible. I mean, it's a very, very in-depth biography of the guy, going back to his childhood, incredible stuff. And it started out seeming kind of okay. Like, you don't just become a cult leader overnight. So, fascinating character study about him, and just like, what is known about him, just the power they can have over people. And anyway.
Well, have you seen my friend Clay Tweel, who's a great director, did Haley's Comet, Cult of Cults on HBO.
I added that. I haven't watched it yet.
That's a great one. That's the one cult that I watched, and I was like, I want to join this.
The
cult.
Heaven's Gate, right? Yeah, it's like, nah.
Yes, sorry, that's what it is.
Is it Heaven's Gate or
Cult of Cults? Yeah.
Okay, yeah. It's like, no, I already have sneakers. I'm in a shroud, in a purple shroud. I'm good. Yeah, I got to check that out. That one looked like really, really interesting. Speaking of, yeah, so
I think there's a lot of cult-like behavior in the book.
Yeah.
A lot of people searching for certain systems to kind of adhere to and then getting burned.
The revenge app comes to mind, like just that what a great idea. I mean, maybe if you don't mind, maybe speaking about that story a little bit, the revenge app, and
sure.
Just telling people what
I have been on my share of dating apps, and I love that I love when they have little gimmicks, like dating apps for cynists or just different ways of like presenting presenting yourself. So I thought there was something interesting about, and I almost a revenge F is what they're.
Sure. Yeah, you can say.
Okay. I almost called the story that, but I didn't want it to be too crude. And also, when you hear that, you think something a little differently. So, so these people are looking for revenge sex, but really as catharsis, to get over their ex and find something new, not in a hopefully not in a mean-spirited way, and like a sad sack. I just can't get over my ex. What can I do? Let me find someone that looks like them and have a relationship and do all the things that I wish I'd done with that person, and kind of act out my fantasies of being powerful. And maybe I was the one that dumped them, or turned the tables, or just reenact it the way you might reenact trauma. So this is really a revenge sex app, and it is abused by some people and is taken a little too literally by others. And you really have to the character in that, I just love the idea of someone who takes the app so literally that he starts enjoying becoming the character he's playing much more than the character or the person he is. And in that way, he kind of finds a little peace and a little bit of emotional growth in a way that he probably hadn't expected. Although hopefully I left it. That's definitely not the way to achieve emotional growth. So he might be in for a bumpy ride emotionally after that. But he does achieve a little bit of zen by the end. But yeah, I'm, that app idea is out there, and if anyone wants to license it and cut me in on a piece of the pie, I'm not really sure how to start an app, but I feel like it's a pretty good idea.
I mean, reading it sounds ridiculous at first, but then it's like, oh, this could be a thing. This might even be a thing. Who knows? If I do enough digging, maybe something like this is out there. I mean, I could totally see people jumping on board for that,
Yeah, I felt like it definitely had to be set in a big city like LA, and that's why I made a kind of a meal of the distance that they're driving to see each other, because just the odds are, probably wouldn't be someone in your neighborhood that you'd find who would match to look just enough like your ex for you to be able to have a relationship with them. So the opposite sides of the city, there's just enough there, and then they both get their directions from each other on how to act to really play the ex. Yes, there's a little bit of vertigo in there.
Love it. Well, maybe we could finish up talking about anything you've read or seen that you really enjoy, that you'd recommend. I know with myself, the past year I've watched probably a lot more TV shows and different things that I probably wouldn't normally have come to. So yeah, just curious, anything that has really like struck you recently?
Well, let's see. I mean, I'm probably watching a lot of I'm watching the White Lotus, which I think probably everyone in the world is. So yeah. I don't think I need to give Mike White a plug, because everyone I think it's so good. Just since we're speaking of short stories, I just read Emma Cline's book Daddy, and I love that. A lot of her stories I'd read in the New Yorker, but I was like, this is like just a great classic collection of stories. I I read the Tarantino, another person who does not need to be plugged, but I read the Tarantino novelization and found it just bizarre and endlessly entertaining. As far as things I'm watching, I might be a little off the radar. I was in we took a break for the summer, but I've been in a film noir Zoom club.
Nice.
So we've been watching all these noirs, and it started off with LA noirs, and then it went international. Then it was like Japanese noirs, Italian noirs, and then it would be kind of with a theme, LGBTQ noirs and things like that. So watched some really great noirs. I rewatched Point Blank recently. It was Steve Marvin. Loved that one. Trying to think, and Body Heat not too long before that. So been watching a lot of great noir. Let's see what I read the book about Chinatown, the making of Chinatown.
Yeah, I picked that up. I haven't read it yet though. That looks really good.
It is fantastic. It reads like a novel. I can see why the rights were picked up. And now, and then I started reading that same author's book about the history of improv. And he's a really great film writer.
Okay. Nice.
Sam Wasser, I think.
Yeah. No, I've been meaning to read the Chinatown book, so I'm glad you reminded me of that. I've heard nothing but good things from people I respect. So.
And I think next I'll read I love Mark Harris, his film books. I love that book, Pictures at a Revolution. So I think I'll read his Mike Nichols book next and be depressed by what a huge life this guy had. But those are a few of the things. I'm excited to read Tao Lin's book as well. I've heard that's great. Leaving Society. So that might be next on the list.
I'm trying to see if I have what have I been reading lately. I think after I read Ames's last book, it kind of got me on like a kick of old stuff that I had either never read before or it's been so long that I've completely forgotten. So let's see. So I think this is the one I'm working on right now, the Nathaniel West writings.
Great.
And this one's because I'd read The Day of the Locust, like that's probably his most notable one, but I'd never read any of the other stuff. So this has been a pretty cool read so far. And it's funny, like you look at I think he's younger. So I just turned 40. He's young. He's like in his 30s here. So it's funny, you see these pictures of these guys and you think, he died before he was 40. So you see these pictures and it's like, oh, that's like my dad. That's a grown up right there.
Yeah.
And no, it's like, oh, they're 35.
Well, I love Miss Lonely Hearts, and just speaking of the Noir Club, we did a Hollywood Noirs session and watched Day of the Locust, which I'd seen as a kid. That movie is so disturbing, so visceral, violent. You just can't believe that this was a big tentpole studio movie released in theaters. It's got to be one of the most transgressive big budget movies ever made. I actually really I enjoyed it more than I had remembered. I think because I was just so shocked by it. So
I've never seen it. I need to seek that out immediately.
If you're in for if you want to be disturbed. I mean, everybody in it is great. Donald Sutherland and Burgess Meredith. It looks great. It's quite a ride. And then I would say my other favorite, the noir discovery I really liked, we did it when we did Italian noirs. We watched a movie, Investigation of a Citizen Above Suspicion.
Okay.
That was a great Italian noir. It almost felt like I wondered if Bret Easton Ellis had ever seen it, because it almost has like little shades of American Psycho in it. So that's my obscure noir rec.
That's so cool. No, I mean, I love chatting with noir because I feel like I kind of came to it late. So it's so, in a lot of ways, I love coming to things late because then it's like I have the whole thing to delve into, and it's going to take me a long time. So such an incredible genre. And I think like when it's done, like I'm reading the Stark books that Ames is always talking about. So I'd never even heard of those books up until maybe a year or so ago. and I have so many more to go through, you know, so it's like, they're just incredible. I mean, I can't believe I never heard of the guy before. And that's just one of his names.
Yeah. No, I can't believe how many books he's written as well. No, Jonathan got me started on the John D. McDonald books.
Yeah.
Which I could not believe how good the first one was.
Yeah.
Now I'm spacing the name, but it's great. I know they tried to make it into a movie many times. I think they did make it into a movie in 1970, but they've been talking about doing one with Leonardo DiCaprio for a while. I think it's called The Big Deep Blue Goodbye. I'll look it up.
I'm not sure on that. Yeah, I'm not sure. No, that's cool. I mean,
what a page.
Yeah, well, I don't want to keep you too long, but I am kind of curious now that this has got me thinking about just like, yeah, these older dudes, and you know, I think maybe a lot of it was like it was their, you know, they depended on producing so much so they could be paid for selling these pulp novels, but so many of them are so good. But it's just amazing when you look at the list of their credits, like throughout their life, and you know, they've written 100, 150 books or whatever, not to mention screenplays. So, and it's, you know, a lot of it's incredible stuff. So I'm just kind of curious about your process of writing that, you know, you do primarily TV and film, but you're writing a fiction as well. So sounds like you have a lot of projects maybe going at once. I'm just really curious about your process for writing. Is there a specific way you do it, or is it the project dictate kind of how you approach it?
Yeah, well, just to say, it was The Deep Blue Goodbye was the book. It was
Deep Blue Goodbye. Okay,
that's the first of that detective series, and it was amazing, and the second one's great too. And I'll dive into the rest. They're, you know, for the jobs, they're all really custom jobs. For me, I keep kind of normal, kind of, you know, boring business hours in a little home office. Yeah, it's some days it's kind of like spinning a lazy Susan of projects, a lot of which seem to be going nowhere. It's not kind of like oftentimes I you know, the fantasy of being a writer that I always liked and hoped to get to, where I kind of wake up and I've got that one project I'm working on. You know, eventually when I was getting closer with this book, that's what that became. And that was really great. I was like, all right, I've just got to, if I'm going to get it done, get this collection done, I've got to put everything aside and just focus in on that. And I really love that. That's, you know, heaven. But more often than not, I'm kind of spinning a few different things, and those will be a collection of projects that I'm either trying to get off the ground myself and maybe try and sell, and a collection of things that are assignments that I'm either trying to get or have been hired for, and I'm trying to complete and not screw up. So yeah, it's kind of a mix.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I guess as far as process, yeah, right in the office, usually have music blasting, but no lyrics, unfortunately.
Okay.
With lyrics, and I have a dog here to keep me company.
Oh, nice. You got to have a dog. I mean, I'm a big dog person. I have 3, too many, but like I was just before talking to you, I had one out on a walk, and it just kind of dawned on me. It's like each of these dogs, because I saw this like really fit guy with his dog like across the park, and he's just, dog's off leash, he's throwing the ball, the dog's just like obediently coming back, and I can't let my dog off leash. And I'm like, I think clearly our dogs, they always say it's like they're a reflection of your personality. And I think like my 3 dogs inhabit like all the worst qualities that I have. And each one is like split between 3 dogs. One's like, one's anxious and neurotic, and one is just like kind of sneaky and, you know, knows they shouldn't be doing things, but they do it anyways when they can get away with it. So
I love it. Well, at least you've spread your neuroses over 3 dogs. My poor dog is just, he's only like 17 or 18 pounds. He's got to shoulder all my neuroses and anxieties and personality quirks. So it's a lot on him.
Yeah. It's like, who's feeding it? Is it like, I mean, I guess we're the humans. So are we drawn to dogs like this, or do we like make it work? I don't know. It's a fascinating. What kind of dog do you have?
Oh, he's a little mutt. He's pretty heavily featured in my the social media. People are always like, why don't you get your dog his own Instagram? I was like, because that's 90% of my posts. He's got the soft fur, so he's probably got half poodle, maybe some Portuguese water dog or Shih Tzu in him. I never got him tested. I know there's a little poodle in him, but I got him at a rescue maybe 10 years ago. His name was Rasta. And I didn't know if I could pull off having a dog named Rasta. So his new name became Snacks.
Snacks. I love it.
Had him for 10 years. Actually, since you've been watching Blunt Talk for the Elizabeth Shue episode, she seduces Patrick Stewart, and her nickname, she tells him it's Snacks.
Yeah, that's right.
Doggy Easter egg for the Blunt Talk heads out there.
I love it. Well, yeah. So anything else you want to say about the book? I mean, I can't say enough good things. I love it. It's something I'm going to definitely read again. And I mean, I love your style of writing. It's just incredible.
I just want to say thanks for reading it. And really, this is the first conversation I've had with anyone about the book who wasn't either a friend who was reading it, the publisher, Mallory and her team at Maudlin House. So this is like super exciting. We're going in fresh. And when you were talking about how fast you read it, at first I was worried. I was like, oh God, it's like a Band-Aid he had to like tear off really quickly, or I guess it is kind of a short collection. So the fact that you enjoyed it is great. And it's been interesting just posting about the book and telling people about the book and starting to talk about it. You know, not everyone reads short stories. So when someone from, high school you haven't talked to in 20 years emails you, it's like, I'm going to buy your book. I almost feel a little anxiety. I was like, oh, should I warn them? Some jokes in there that maybe it's too off color. It's a very different kind of animal than a novel that will usually have some kind of, conventional plot and structure and payoff. So stories are very different things. So especially if you're not used to reading them, then it sometimes it's hard to push the book on unsuspecting people. So anyway, I'm rambling, but I was just so excited that you liked it.
Oh, good. I had and I don't read a whole lot of short stories, so I mean I'm sold even. Yeah, so I mean I read it fast and just because I didn't have the impulse control to put it aside. And, I was like, oh, I love this. This is exactly, I kind of had a feeling I would really like it just based upon the projects you've been involved with. And, just finding you on Jonathan's Twitter, I kind of had a feeling, and the title drew me in. But it was like, I don't want to be a brown noser, but I just I totally loved it. It was like so much better than I was hoping for. So it was just such a cool, unique book. And I definitely, like I said, I'm gonna recommend it to all, my friends and people who contact me on my website. And it's just, it's an incredible thing. It comes out August 8th. Next, we're recording this on a Tuesday.
It might even be the 9th.
Okay. So
around there. But okay. So it's for sale on Maudlin House, and then I tell people in LA to order it from our local bookstore. Skylight Books will have it.
Right.
And that's really great. It's also validating that you like the title, because I wrung my hands about it so much, and then a few people were like, "Well, you shouldn't even call that story The Cult in My Garage, because it kind of gives away the goose." But I was like, but it just sounds. I don't know. It sounds cool.
Yeah, I didn't know what to expect. I mean, I guess maybe I'm ignorant and naive, but I was just like, I wasn't sure. I mean, I had no idea which, what direction you were going to go with it. So until it started happening. So I think it's an awesome title, and I really hope a lot of people, find it. And I'm going to put this episode out on the day the book is released. I'll put links to Skylight Books. So I love that bookstore. I go down there every time I'm there.
You're the best.
But yeah, Duncan, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you for having me. What a treat. It's been great.
I'm excited. I'd love to have you on again down the road when you maybe you get your horror comedy film out there, or anything else you want to plug. I'd love to have you on and chat some more, because it sounds like we have a lot of the similar interests. So I think it'd be fun to
your guests. I know so many of your guests. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah.
Thanks, Skylar. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Okay. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.